I almost did it. I was afraid. Print out stuff at home and write it up and, have my monologue, which I have not put up on Medium yet. And I was afraid that, oh my goodness, I must have printed it out and left it at home. No, it's right here. Thank goodness. I'm Marky Billson, your voice of choice for a new generation of Tri-City sports fans. The name of the program is Tri-City Sports. Now we own the Tri-Cities because I got the best guests and the hardest opinions, hitting opinions in the market. And from what I can tell, the best prizes as well, because while others give away $2 Dollywood tickets, I give away 4. Might be nice to give away like ball game tickets or something. I got to talk to the teams about that, I guess. Today's show, in just a few minutes, Rick Goslin. He's a Dallas sports writer, Morning News down there, and he is the senior committee chair of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Now, I've been dancing all around, but I haven't really gotten to the fact that this is the 100th season of the National Football League. Next year, 100th anniversary. Canton, Ohio is where it started at an old automobile dealership, the Hupmobile. They didn't make it to the 40s, okay? But an old automobile dealership in Canton, and that's where the pro football, the NFL was created, basically. It was a large part of Midwestern organization, pro football, and it, branched out to what it is today, 100 years later. But, the Canton Bulldogs, their last year was 1926, but they were the first, I guess, early power. The Akron Pros were in there as loyal as the Decatur Staleys, and yes, also the Green Bay Packers. So, you had a lot of different things. That was a very different era. The NFL was a garage league, but it is the 100th anniversary, and certainly the NFL is no longer a garage league. Anyway, there's talk about a 20-man Pro Football Hall of Fame class in 2020. Jerry Kramer. Question, well, why did it take for him so long to get in? And now, the idea is, okay, we'll have the normal players that would get in their first battles here. 2020, Manning. What was Manning's last year? Manning's last year, I'm trying to think. Manning's last year, he might be, what's here? It's 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, I think 21. Wait, the 5 full years. But his last year was 15, wasn't it? With the Broncos, the Super Bowl title. I'm trying to think. So he retired in 14. All right. Figure that out, and then you'll get who'll be eligible for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, regular ballots. But I mean, so many great players from the old days. And people say, why didn't he get in? Why didn't they get in? We just got liked by Drew Pearson. I personally did. There's a guy. Why isn't Drew Pearson in the Pro Football Hall of Fame? We'll be talking about what's going to go on with the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and maybe your favorite player from back in the day will get his just desserts. I am a big proponent of having big halls of fames. I'm not big on exclusivity. Now, there are some people I don't think should be in. I don't think that Jerry Jones, under any circumstance, should be in. I mean, what did he do? Screw up the Cowboys dynasty? Make them a mediocre franchise? I know he brought in a lot of money into the league. That's basically why he's in. Is that enough? If so, why isn't Art Modell in? Okay. Bud Selig changing everything he possibly can and getting in the Hall of Fame because of it, ridiculous. Actually, there's this thing that says ticket revenue is up by 19 million in Major League Baseball this year, but attendance overall is down. What does that tell you? It tells you they raised the ticket prices. That's all it tells you. Speaking of baseball, there was sad news yesterday. Jim Bouton died. He was the ultimate outsider who became the ultimate insider. What you say here, what you see here, let it stay here when you leave here. That used to be a sign in every Major League Baseball clubhouse. And Jim Bouton pretty much smashed it into a million bits. I think most people, I would hope my audience is well aware enough why that was the case. The book Ball 4. which was at the time a very groundbreaking book. Jim Bouton kept a novel of the 1969 Seattle Pilots. And they were an expansion franchise in 1969. He had once been in the starting rotation Bouton had of some Yankees pennant winners. Pitched in a World Series. And was a good starting pitcher. But by 1969, let's see here, he was, that other side of 28 now. And that was still considered to be your prime, but his production just wasn't what it was. Maybe in those days with, pitchers expected to go 9, arm was beginning to, fail or so. He experimented with the knuckleball. He eventually made a comeback at the age of 38. But he wasn't the pitcher he had been 5 years before. And he was now, his salary had been cut, and he was trying to make it on arguably the worst team in baseball. I don't think did the Pilots have the worst record in 69? I don't believe they did. I know the expansion franchises in 69 in the National League, Montreal and San Diego had worse records. And it was ironic because the 2 expansion American League teams that year were both put in the Western Division, Kansas City and Seattle. Regardless. Ball 4 is, what can I tell you? It's an iconic sports book. It is the only sports-themed book of the New York Library's 1996 list of books of the century. Time magazine named it one of the 100 top books of the 20th century. Right up by, so we're talking about The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, Ball 4 by Jim Bouton. I mean, that's not bad. And as I said, he was probably, because of that, the ultimate outsider. He wasn't the star of the team. He was, at his peak, a member of the New York Yankees starting rotation when they were a young up-and-comer, and in the same rotation as what? I guess, was Whitey Ford still around? I believe so. Ralph Terry, those guys, And what Ball 4 did is it was a diary of a Major League Baseball team, but it was a look that had never been presented before. It was a behind-the-scenes look, if you don't know this, and I think a lot of people do, but, it was revealing that horrors of horrors, young men like to look at young women. Now, the way they did it was not necessarily the most mature way to do it, which may have been shocking, but the fact of the matter is, if you were ever a member of a high school sports team, and I imagine many of you were, think about, hey, check out that cheerleader. What did you say? Yeah, it probably wasn't all that chivalrous to your buddy on a bench about, oh my goodness, look at her. Did you see her today in school? Yeah. And we learned that the Major League Baseball players, the Seattle Pilots, like to participate in something called a beaver shoot, in which they would gaze at women from hotel balconies, and even got a little bit more than that. I was thinking about the high school days. I can recall, evidently there was a story. There was a story in the book Ball 4 about ball players. They're in a mood, and I guess for kicks or jokes or spits and giggles, they had a kissing game. Guys, I can remember being a university high outfielder and, riding on the team bus to an away game, and 2 ball players stopped at a light on the team bus, and they get by a window, and 2 ball players would make like they were making out with each other. This is a university high, baseball team, so that the driver in the next car over to the team bus would be shocked. That's ball players. Well, Jim Bouton opened the door to that really maybe had been kind of known, but never really discussed. Now, one of the things I liked about Jim O'Brien was Jim Bouton's relationship with a bullpen coach by the name of Eddie O'Brien. Eddie O'Brien actually once cost me $20 because I bet an beautiful identical twin waitress. Hey, Courtney and Chelsea Cornell. I'm forwarding this to you, okay? This is your mention on this. But I bet them $20 they wouldn't know the identical twins that played for the Pittsburgh Pirates. They were identical twins working as waitresses and bartenders at a sports bar. And anyway, and I assure you the Cornells were better looking than O'Briens, and I have no idea if the O'Briens, being a man, were good looking or not. But the Cornell, anyway, that's neither here nor there. And so I lost a $20 bar bet on that. Anyway. But, it's educational. That's what we do here on Tri-City Sports Now. All right? So, and back then, too. My private sector days. Anyway, Eddie O'Brien, he was a Seattle native, and he had been a bit ball player in the 50s with his brother on the Pirates, and now was sort of like, okay, the Seattle Pilots come to town, Seattle native. I know, let's make him the bullpen coach. This way he can qualify, get the pension, that sort of thing. And they give him the position of bullpen coach. That is an overrated position, and so he got an overrated sense of authority. There's a story in the book where the Pilots, 6 stadiums where they played back then, the bullpens are closer to the field than in those days, and they get a 10-year-old boy, and they invite him into the bullpen, and they put a cap on his head. And friends and family see the 10-year-old boy, hey, you're going to go into the game, and they have him sit on a bench next to him, and you're making a fan for life. Well, Eddie O'Brien, who famously, on a road trip, went to a Moroccan restaurant and ordered American fare. That was the sort of guy O'Brien was. Well then, here was Eddie O'Brien now saying, you got to break this up. We can't do this. We'll get in trouble. Wet blanket city. No tact whatsoever. And so, fan for life, well now, he's naughty. Now, it wasn't the only tell-all book, Ball 4. Out of Left Field came about a few years later, revealing some other behind-the-scenes stories of the Pittsburgh Pirates. But the thing was, the Pirates of that era were winners. They're remembered for their personality, but also their play on the field. All that the Seattle Pilots have, a one-year team before moving to Milwaukee the next year, is Ball 4. That's all you got to remember them by. Nothing could be more interesting than a Major League Baseball team that only lasted one season. But by taking the sheet back, if you will, pulling back the cover, the curtain, if you will, they became fascinating. Ball 4 is the Seattle Pilots. Now, my late friend Al Gallagher, actually his paths crossed with Jim Bouton in the minor leagues when Bouton tried to make a comeback. He didn't like him. Even back then, Bouton wanted to, reveal things that Gallagher, a manager in the Braves organization, did not think should be revealed. And I'll talk a little bit more about this, but Rick Goslin is warming up in the bullpen alongside the 10-year-old boy, so we're going to bring him on here in just a second. But I got to tell you this. Pulling back that curtain, revealing that, Mickey Mantle drinks too much. Maybe Bouton was Mickey Mantle's best friend because he was revealing his problem, in many ways challenging him to face it, which Mantle really never did, and his drinking cost him his life just, 25 years after his playing career over. He died a relatively young man, did Mickey Mantle, in his 60s. And so maybe Bouton, by pulling back that curtain and doing the tell-all book, was Mantle's best friend. He gave him an opportunity to save his life, to, reveal the secret that maybe wasn't so flattering but needed to be revealed, and it wasn't, ultimately. Or at least not for a long time. And that's how I really think that Bouton, who passed away yesterday at 80, author of Ball 4, maybe, thought to be the ultimate outsider in baseball. Blackballed. Hey, you told all our secrets. Maybe actually, by doing that, he became the ultimate insider. Rick Goslin joins me next. It's Tri-City Sports Now.
Yankee Doodle wanted fun for just a single